This interview episode is brought to you by Tyree Off-Road. Lights for people that need to get shit done. Visit tyreoffroad.com right now. That's TYRI offroad.com. Howdy-ho, boys and girls. It's time for another Jeep Talk Show interview, and today we're going to be talking with Karen. Karen is passionate about leading advocacy. Boy, these are big words. I should have looked these up, Karen. Public policy and government affairs strategies across local, state, and federal jurisdictions. She joined SEMA's government affairs team in October of 2022. Away from the office, you can usually find her outdoors enjoying her Jeep, hiking, biking, or paddling. Did I say that right? Is that paddling?
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear paddling. I remember being in trouble at school. It's not that kind of paddling.
It's not the kind of paddling. We're not going to get that personal here.
That would make off-road a little more exciting, wouldn't it?
Sure. I mean, if people are into that, we don't judge.
See, I warned you before we started.
That's all good.
So I'm really happy to hear, and I don't think this is unusual, but I'm really happy to hear that there's somebody in SEMA that has a Jeep. Because I think that is the best off-road vehicle. Obviously, I'm a big Jeep fan. I've never owned any other off-road vehicle except for my '83 Chevrolet four-wheel drive pickup, and that's not a Jeep. It's definitely not the same thing as a Jeep. If you've ever been in a full-size truck off-road, I call them land yachts or mud goers, but certainly a wonderful truck. So, what Jeep do you have?
So my husband and I actually have 4 Jeeps. So we have
God bless you.
Yeah. So we're committed to the brand. We've got a 2000 TJ, a 2014 JK 2-door, and then mine are a 2017 JK 2-door Big Bear, not Big Bear. Yeah, I think it's Big Bear package. And then the one that I use out west is my 2021 diesel Rubicon.
Nice. And how hard was it to find a diesel?
Very, actually. It was actually kind of funny because I'd been wanting one and I was waiting for them to come out. And that's when I finally got too impatient and bought my 2017. And I live on the East Coast, so I don't know if they just didn't have a lot, but then of course, then COVID happened. So it wasn't like, I was out shopping and of course everybody and his uncle was buying Jeeps at the time and everything else. So I happened to be in California at our California headquarters and drove by a Jeep dealership, and there's this bright yellow Rubicon. So I just stopped in just because the yellow, and they're like, "Oh, but it's a diesel," and I'm like, "Oh, sold."
Oh, really?
I was like, sold.
What is that? What does that mean? Take my money. Take my money.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, they sort of tried to position it. I don't know if they thought it was a negative, and I'm just like, "This is great. I finally found one. It's like a unicorn."
Yeah. And I think it's cool. It's disappointing too, because I know just because it's a diesel engine, and I don't know that much about the Stellantis diesel engine, but just because it's a diesel engine doesn't mean it's good. But it's certainly the potential there for low end torque, higher MPGs. I was going to say gas mileage, but that doesn't really fit. Higher MPGs. It's just a shame that we haven't embraced the diesel engine in this country more.
Yeah. Well, I think there's been sort of ebbs and flows. But then, of course, some of the scandals that have happened with DOEs and Dieselgate, especially with VW there a few years ago, I think really kind of put a tamp down on the diesel adoption. And then, of course, the emission standards that are being set, I think is making diesel a little bit more challenging. But I love diesel engines. This one's quirky, but I just sort of chalk that up to just being Jeep versus necessarily the engine. But for off-roading and especially out west, it's been awesome. Yeah.
Now, you don't have to agree with my position on this, but I think the EPA is way over cautious. And I thought it was funny as hell when VW said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do, unless somebody hooks something up to the port, and then we're going to change the settings." I thought it was brilliant. Cost them $1 billion.
Yeah, but there's that should be out of a job.
Yeah, that should be telling. That should be telling to the government that these standards aren't sustainable. You cannot have these kind of standards and expect the American or foreign car makers, for that matter, selling cars and vehicles in the U.S. to be able to meet these standards. They're outside the realm of intelligence, or maybe it can be done, but it's way too expensive.
Well, I think it just goes back to what we've been battling for the past couple of years, and that's the EV mandates.
Hmm.
Because again, you're canceling every other technology in favor of one technology that is great part of the fleet. If you want to buy an EV, buy an EV. But the fact is that we have so many other technologies that we can utilize that are already in the marketplace. Your hybrids, your plug-in hybrids, diesel, gasoline, and then what's on the forefront with alternative fuel blends, synthetics, bios. I mean, there's just such a huge bunch. So I think it's more along the lines of, the government just now needs to allow industry to innovate. Because when it comes to car people, we always know how to do more with less.
Hmm. Well, this isn't unusual. I mean, back whenever cell phones were just bricks and you made phone calls only on them, they mandated that everybody switch over to the smartphones, right? So that's why we're all on smartphones. No,
I didn't know that.
I'm being facetious. That's
okay.
not what happened.
I don't remember that regulation.
Yeah, no, that's not what happened. The public decided the smartphones were more convenient, more interesting, whatever, and they switched over. The charge on the dumb cell phones lasted a lot longer than they did on the smartphones. But we wanted that extra technology. Okay, same thing here. Don't do an EV mandate because, well, number one, especially if you're a Texan, the hell with you, because I'm going to do what the hell I want to do. I was going to be building Jeeps for the next 40 years, and it wasn't going to be EV unless the EV made sense. Like if I could go 1,000 miles on a charge and I could recharge in 5 minutes, of course. The torque, the horsepower, all that stuff is much better in an electric vehicle than it is in an internal combustion engine. But it needs the technology isn't there, in my opinion. We're not at that level of technology where it makes sense to switch over, and that's going to happen. The public's going to adopt it as soon as it's better.
Yeah, I mean, it's both the technology, but also just the consumer interest and demand for it. Because again, not every American consumer is created equal in the sense of what their needs are, where they live, what their geographies are. Just again, I've just completed a trip across the country, both west and back east, and driving through main interstates. Even the availability of EV charging stations was nominal.
Yeah.
And I traveled I-40 on the way out, and I think it was 80 on the way back. And so the infrastructure is not even in place in some of our major highways. Right.
And that's another problem. Were you part of the SEMA going to Washington, D.C. and Henderson and Holman and everything, going out there and talking to senators?
I actually head up the DC office for SEMA. So that was me and my team. Yeah,
I thought it probably was. I just want to ask you and go, I didn't do that.
I was like, actually, I happened to be there.
Yeah, that was great. I am so glad that you guys did that. And I would assume that that's on SEMA's dime, that whole thing that you guys had to put together and coordinate. And I got to tell you, though, I was kind of disappointed. I mentioned, Greg Henderson's a part of the Jeep Talk Show. I wanted to see Greg in front of a big panel of congressmen, sitting at that table with a microphone where they always lean in and talk on the microphone.
I mean, do you really want to put Greg in front of?
Yeah, I did. We'd have a really good time giving him a hard time about it, especially if he was wearing a kilt.
Exactly. I mean, and shoes optional. Yeah.
But it was neat that they got to go and speak with various congressmen. We got some feedback on that from those conversations. I also spoke with Tom over at 4Fest Events. Got a little insight into that from him as well. And it sounds like overall it was well received.
Yeah, no, it was great timing. We put it together in about 2 weeks. So that was probably the fastest fly-in ever put together. And we weren't really sure how many people we'd attract because it was, again, very short notice. Because the resolutions that we were dealing with, which on the EV mandates, got introduced over President's Day weekend. And so we were thrilled to have, I think over close to 40 people join us in Washington, D.C., including Greg and Tom and some other Michiganders, as well as others around the country. And, sort of fast forward now about, I guess it's been 6 weeks or so. The House just passed earlier this morning the actual resolutions that we were asking for. So now they go to the Senate for action.
Well, hopefully that will all work out. It's such a narrow margin in the House. It's difficult, but the Speaker Mike Johnson seems to be getting things done in there with that small majority. And I just think it's a no-brainer. And certainly for this administration, I think it's a something that they would want to do.
Well, it was directed by the EPA, sending the regulation back to Congress because of sort of the procedural windows were open for them to be able to do that. And the fact is that when it passed this morning, it actually passed with bipartisan support. So 35 Democrats joined the Republicans in supporting the resolution. So we were very pleased about that. That's a lot of work that our team's been doing over the past several weeks. And so now hoping that that bipartisanship carries over to the Senate, and so that the Senate will take action.
Well, I mean, if the Democratic Party is letting the House people vote the way they want to, then that could happen in the Senate as well. So I'm very glad to hear about that. The only thing I've ever heard for bipartisan support recently is the UAP hearings. Like, show us the damn UFOs. Everybody, both sides want to know. I want to know more about the UFOs.
Sure, whatever floats your boat. I don't really follow UFO policy. We got our hands full already with all of our automotive.
I just found it interesting. I mean, if you see what's her name, Cortez up there going, what they said. Let's do what the Republicans said. It's like, oh my God.
No, there are times that they do agree on stuff or come to sort of some agreements. And the fact is that, when it comes to automotive policy, it really shouldn't be a partisan issue. This is an American manufacturing issue. This is an American issue. It's an American car issue, not something that should be politically divisive. But unfortunately, the EV issue did become very politically divisive. But hopefully we're narrowing that gap and get ourselves back to a good place.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I hadn't heard anything about how that was progressing. I haven't been following it. Also, too, I know, and I don't know very much about this, so you may be able to correct me on this. I know that there was a push in the past, maybe recently, and maybe this EV thing has something to do with it, where companies did not want you working on your own vehicles, which is a huge thing for the people that show up for the SEMA event every year. I mean, I just think it's foolhardy to think that you got to take your vehicle back to a dealership to be worked on. I mean, the dealerships love it, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a separate issue from EVs. It's actually an ongoing issue called right to repair, and it's federal legislation that has been bouncing around Capitol Hill for a number of years. So the legislation was introduced this year for the new Congress. SEMA is taking a bit of a different approach because the right to repair bill is really focused on repair and replace, which is fine. But for us, we want to make sure that we're also protecting the right to modify. And I
didn't think about that.
And so currently the legislation does not address our concerns about protecting the right to modify, and especially as vehicle technology becomes more sophisticated, more computerization, limiting access to the ECU so that our members' parts can talk to the vehicle, and especially with advanced driver safety systems, we think that the time's now that we need to make that adjustment and ensure that we have that protection to modify our vehicles for generations to come.
Well, I mean, the designers and the dealerships, not the dealerships, but the designers of the vehicles could make that a lot easier by putting a fully functioning interface. Not OBD2, but something like is maybe a USB connector.
Since we're so good at USBs around here these days.
Well, there's so much stuff that you can do to your phone. I mean, I think they willingly make it difficult for people to do things. And if they're concerned about making sure modifications don't screw things up, man, plug in your laptop, your cell phone, and let the computer tell you if it checks out. I mean, just make it much simpler. But they don't do that because there's a bit of protectionism.
There's a little bit of protectionism. I think there's also some unknowns with regards to the technologies, and especially when it comes to the advanced driver safety systems and their own liabilities and whatever. The way that I position it in my conversations with the OEs is the fact that people are going to modify their vehicles. Consumers are going to modify their vehicles, whether you like it or not. And so we can either give them the tools and the information to do it safely so that all the systems are talking to each other so that the safety systems are operating as they need to be, or people can modify and then they just operate unsafe vehicles. And so I think it's in our interest, and I think it's our responsibility as a whole industry, so OEs and aftermarket, is to facilitate consumers from doing to do modification safely.
Right. No, and it just makes sense. Now, it's so funny, these advanced safety systems you talk about. I learned how to drive, I think, in 1974. And the mandated advanced safety system was a seatbelt.
Right.
I lived in a time as a child where seatbelts were not mandatory. And, yeah, I mean, the death was possible, but death is always possible. The only problem with the death is there's a requirement you have to be alive, and life is dangerous. Oh, and speaking of being alive in dangerous situations, how do you guys deal with California? Because California always seems to have a lot more, craziness when it comes to the safety of their people. As long as they don't need to be able to afford a house or a place to live, then they want everything safe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This could be a whole 5-hour conversation on its own, but really where we focus in our space with regards to California is really around the emissions policy, because they have their own emission standards that they like to push on the rest of the country. That's actually what Congress just voted on. The House just voted on this morning, is sort of putting California back in its proverbial corner when it comes to emissions policy. Because right now their policy is impacting 40% of the country, and we don't believe that was what was granted to them. So
is there like 5 or 6, maybe more states that follow whatever California does?
There's 16 states that are actually considered CARB states, and then 11 that have already signed on to ACC2. Although some of them have started to walk that back, like the state of Maryland did a couple of weeks ago. So
good. So there's not a lot. Basically, what I'm hearing here, there's not a lot that you can do to work with California other than segregate them, let them do their own thing to their own people.
Well, I mean, they technically can do it to themselves. It's just they can't do it to the rest of the country. But even in the emissions policies that they have, we do work with them in our emissions. We have the SEMA garage, which is an emission testing facility for new products, and to make sure that they are compliant. But it's a working relationship.
Sure. And I don't want to put you in a bad position, but this is something I can well understand, that it would be a difficult thing to work with or work towards what you guys want to do. So tell me something really quick. There may be other people that know this. I think there's a lot of people that don't. When people think of SEMA, they think of the big event in November, like I did before I started finding out more about SEMA and all the various things, especially, you guys going to Washington. I mean, it's like, well, there's no show in Washington. They're not. How does this help the show? Really, the show, and correct me on this, is like the big event, is the notable thing that is kind of a good advertisement for SEMA. I mean, I know it's more than that, but it's kind of a good advertisement for SEMA. But you guys do a lot more, and we've covered some of that. What all does the SEMA do that you're aware of?
So in addition to the show, which obviously that's what we're known for, and of course, as we've been talking about all the work that we do in Washington, D.C. on behalf of the industry, as well as enthusiasts that support our industry, we also work in all 50 state capitals and even sometimes at the local level. But in addition to that function, we also have SEMA Garage, which has our emissions testing centers, as well as an ADAS safety testing system that's in our Detroit garage. And we have both a Detroit and a California garage. We also have SEMA Data. And then we also have a number of different volunteer initiatives and areas like our councils and networks, which is the opportunity, which are all segmented by different segments of the aftermarket. So you can network and get to know others in your respective part of the industry. We also have a pretty robust education program. So if you go to the show, there's a ton of education seminars and workshops that we offer, but then also offer that kind of training all year round. So there's a lot that goes on at SEMA, and really just trying to support and continue to support our industry, and especially support the innovation in our industry, which is why things like the emissions lab and the safety testing systems are really important to the future of the industry, because we want to make sure that our members' products work, and our folks have access to the testing facilities, and they offer, if you're a SEMA member, you get a discount on the cost of utilizing the testing systems.
And people can be a part of SEMA. Is this correct? You can join SEMA?
So if you're a business, we have a business membership, but then we also recently relaunched our individual membership program called SEMA Plus. So if you're an enthusiast and you want to be part of the larger SEMA family, SEMA Plus is the way to go. It's $40 for a membership, and in addition to sort of being kept abreast of all the stuff that's going on across the organization and the industry, especially our advocacy, is that it also offers a bunch of different discounts, both sort of traditional consumer discounts as well as discounts within the industry. And then we also have things like special offerings for special events. So we've got one coming up with this is not a Jeep event, but the NHRA Nationals in Norwalk, Ohio, at the end of June, as well as some great opportunities coming down the pike. So if you're not a business and don't qualify as a business member, we'd love to have you come join us as a SEMA Plus member.
And that would help SEMA do all these things that they're trying to do for us all. I mean, the Washington, D.C. things, the other things you guys do in the background, this would help support that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. Now, just tell me you're not part of that if you don't know, but I was curious, and I think a lot of people wonder about this. I haven't been to SEMA in a number of years. When I went to SEMA, it was industry people only. Mm-hmm. And I think it still is that way for the majority of the week. But like towards the end of the week, you guys let anybody, the riffraff, you let the riffraff in. That's my words, not yours.
Yeah, I don't refer to them as riffraff because ultimately they are the people that buy our products or our members' products.
Good save.
So we may disagree a little on that, but yes, we do open up the show on Fridays, and that's actually one of the benefits for SEMA Plus members is that you get early access to those tickets as well as a discount, and you get to go into a special fast track line to get your credentials when you come to Vegas. So yes, we have opened that up to the public. It is, I think, a limited number of tickets available, and then after that, there's SEMA Fest, which is a concert that late afternoon and into the evening on Friday. So there will be tickets available for that as well. I think I know that the show registration just opened up a couple of days ago, and then SEMA Fest will be on sale shortly.
Yeah, it seems like a long way away, but it comes so quickly because it's like first week of November or something like that usually.
It is. Time really flies. Thankfully, I don't have to, I don't have to plan the show. That's a whole different department and a great talented group of people that are extraordinary at what they do. So we do a lot of different things at the show. The government affairs team, we actually host lawmakers at the show so that we give lawmakers, elected officials, the firsthand experience about what our industry is. And so we tend to attract a lot of state lawmakers because there's a lot of policy that goes on at the state level, but ultimately state lawmakers may become federal lawmakers. So we like to develop those relationships early and introduce them to our industry, have them meet folks from their districts. We host some events for them to have them interact with our political action committee donors. So the government affairs team is pretty busy when it comes to showtime.
Mm-hmm. Now, the times that I've gone out there, the Jeep Talk Show has been in publication. We're in our 15th year, so I was still doing the Jeep Talk Show. I think in 2013 is the last time I went to SEMA. So this may have changed. I don't think it has. There are a lot of Jeeps at the SEMA event.
Oh yeah,
a lot of Jeeps, not just Jeeps, but a lot of Jeeps. Has SEMA ever thought about us having a separate Jeep only event? It's kind of like Easter Jeep Safari, but this would be SEMA Jeep. And it was same type of thing, maybe at the 6-month mark and having 2 shows, one Jeep related. Although that might take away from the other one because there's so many people that love Jeeps that they might only go to the other one.
But then we need to do one for Bronco, and then we need to do one for
No. See, that's where you're wrong. That's where you're wrong.
I mean, I have to be diplomatic. I'm the political person, but no. Look, I think SEMA really does put on its key event in November where it brings together the entire industry, and it's the one time a year that the entire industry comes together. So no matter what part of it, whether you're on the racing and performance side, collector car side, off-road side. And I think, a lot of our community groups, our local groups, and even, things like Easter Jeep Safari and then Smoky Mountain Jeep and I think a bunch of people are just finishing up Daytona this past week. So I think the community and regional folks really do a great job of keeping the Jeep spirit alive. I don't know. I don't know if they need our help. I think they're doing a pretty awesome job.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying. I think whenever I went out there, I think it must have been closer to 2020. I don't remember the time. I know I went in 2013. Maybe I went after that because I remember that there were gladiators every stinking everywhere you look. There was a gladiator because they had just come out. So it probably was the 2020 gladiator that. So it was probably 2019 when I went. But it was like. Oh my God! There's so many Jeeps. So I don't think it's called this the SEMA Jeep Fest because there was just so many. But I guess it's good too because when you have vendors, a lot of the vendors make and sell products for multiple vehicles, not just Jeeps. So yeah, it's great. And if somebody likes a Bronco, I'm fine with that. You drive whatever you want to drive. It's just I'm not interested in them. So I just want a show for me basically. So let's just make a Tony show.
Yeah, you'll make the Tony Jeep show. But yeah, I mean, look, if you go into the truck and off road. Part of the industry actually takes up the entire West Hall of the convention center, and like wall to wall packed, and it's fully supporting the off road truck and off road space of the industry, which is pretty extraordinary. So, it's personally my favorite part of the convention center, but I'm usually running from hall to hall to hall and back. So.
Oh, I bet you guys are all very, very busy. And it's a huge place. I mean, if you've never been to SEMA, it is eye candy everywhere. And it's definitely something that you should do. It's kind of like going to EJS. You should at least do that one time. If you don't own a Jeep, buddy up with somebody that has one so you can go out there and be in part of that event. It's a lot of fun. And you just got back from that, didn't you?
I did, from Easter Jeep Safari. I did.
And were you out there in the yellow diesel?
I was in the yellow diesel and I didn't break it. So it's great. It was a good week.
And we were talking before we started recording and you actually ran across a few Jeep Talk Show people out there, right?
I did. Roger and some of the other folks, they hosted a ride actually my last day there. So I think that was on was it Thursday? I think it was Thursday. So yeah, we went and did Metal Masher and did a barbecue at the top of, I didn't do the cooking. Roger did the cooking, and some of the other folks did. I was just a guest, which was awesome, and so did a barbecue close to the top of the mountain, and then got ourselves off the mountain as the black clouds rolled over us and started dumping sleet and rain.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing for EJS this year. So when you mentioned Roger's name earlier, I apologized, but I want to officially apologize again. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Roger's awesome. And
Roger's
I love
good.
The fact that he did that, and it was really cool that he and the group put together that ride, and it was a pretty big group. There were a bunch of folks from Chicago that had never driven Moab before, so it was a good group of folks and a good day. Oh, and
them out there representing the Jeep Talk Show, just so honored that so many people are. Because a lot of them traveled a long ways, like you said, from Chicago. Yeah. So, that was really cool. Was there any memorable experiences that you could mention about the Jeep Talk Show or just EJS in general?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I love being out on trails. I ended up spending a little bit more time on individual trails than I expected because we had one day coming down from top of the world. One of our folks broke down. He lost his steering. There was an arm that came loose, that the welding had come loose. So that was a longer than expected day, but amazing view.
You're not talking about Eric, are you?
I am.
Yeah, he was on our roundtable. We were talking about that.
Yeah. So I stuck with Eric until they all figured out how to, and I lent some ratchet straps as well to the effort. But so I was like, that's all I got.
Could you imagine driving down on ratchet straps? I mean, it was a track bar. It was a track bar that mount that broke.
Yeah.
And I was giving him a hard time because Greg and he both were on our latest roundtable. And I said, he said Greg welded it back. I said, so are you going to get that weld x-rayed? You going to make sure that weld's okay?
Well, it can't be any worse than what it was when he showed up. So, Greg's definitely an improvement, but I would definitely trust Greg's build over anybody else. But
I would too, but it's really good to give him a hard time about it.
Yeah.
So we have a pretty good relationship with Tyree Lights. Boy, talk about some great lights. Just amazing. I was always to get the $100 light from Amazon or a pair for $100. And then Ken hooked me up with some lights and I'm like, oh my God, this is just amazing. So
Buy American. American.
I love that.
They produce domestically, and they actually went out on their drive, one of their night drives, so that Easter Jeep Safari is a big time for all of the manufacturers to do their content development for their marketing and everything like that for the year. So So my Jeep got to model with Tyree lights,
Oh,
and
nice.
it was pretty cool. Some of my favorite photography from the week. So, and I got to try out my new drone that I bought. So,
So, Eric and Cole didn't check with me. I whenever they were testing out the light bar that they had, I think, I forget whose Jeep it was on. Maybe it was one of the Tyree vehicles. And that light bar was insanely bright.
Yeah.
They needed a raccoon at 100 feet. If you've seen the meme, I don't need the lights that bright because I don't need to see a raccoon. I won't go into details.
Oh, okay.
2 miles down the road. You haven't seen it. It's hilarious.
Okay.
So they just need to have a raccoon out there where they were lighting up. Yeah, I think it's really neat. I love bright lights. People say lockers before lights. I don't say that. I say lights before lockers. Because if you have lights, you may not need the locker because you'll see where the hell you're going at night.
Sure. I was glad that we got through the technical, the difficult technical stuff before total nightfall, because there's some steep stuff over there on that particular trail. We were on fins and things, but I love night. I love night driving because it's quiet and
it's cooler.
Yeah, it's cooler. Yeah.
The open environment is usually more refreshing, especially if you've been out all day. So I think the dust is the same, but I'm going to say the dust is not as much. Of course, you probably just don't see it as much.
Well, you actually, one of my favorite shots that I took was as we pulled the vehicles up to we parked them at a canyon ledge so that we basically lit up the canyon. And so we pulled it up. And so as a result of us pulling up, it kicked up all this dust. So the lights with the dust, it was like a really cool shot.
Yeah.
So I was like, I didn't even plan that. So
do you put these things up online? Is it on SEMA or is your personal, or how does that work?
Mostly personal. Yeah, mostly personal. So I have a couple of reels from the week. I've fallen behind on all my content from the week just because I had to travel back and my schedule's been insane since I got back to the East Coast. So yeah, so I'm on Jeep. My Instagram handle is DC Jeep and Food. I like that combo. Exactly. So there's some content up there, and I'll have some more going up hopefully in the next week or so. But I keep saying that, and my schedule just keeps getting destroyed.
I mean, even with high speed internet, it's difficult because you have so many pictures that are taken, and you want to do I want to send that one or this one or just dump them all? So yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Well, and it was great because Greg also did a Google photo share, so everybody that was sort of riding together throughout the week or in and out of groups, everybody uploaded their stuff. So I had the drone stuff. One of the guys, Nick with NPD Logistics, he had his drone stuff up, and then everybody's camera action and all that kind of stuff. So it's like sorting through and what do you want and to put together. And then actually, like, as we all know, putting together social media posts and reels isn't, everyone thinks it's so easy, but it takes some time.
Oh yeah, and just curating all the pictures that you have, the ones you want to put up. So I'm just curious, were you out there for SEMA, or you were out there personally, or maybe both?
It's for both. Yeah. So I had my SEMA badge on my Jeep, decal that I threw up on there, and so I do it for both reasons. It's sort of the one event I try not to miss each year.
So was there more SEMA presence than just you?
Alan Jossie, who handles our sales for the off-road community and all the booth sales and everything for the SEMA show, he was out there. So he and I both joined the Tread Lightly project and the Trail Restoration and Protection project at Top of the World. So I know he and I sort of split off, and he ended up doing some other stuff with some of his other customers. And then of course there's always a bunch of TORA members. So the Off-Road Association, which is one of our councils and networks within SEMA, there were a number of our members out there and volunteers. So SEMA was sort of all spread out throughout, whether from a staff perspective like me and Alan, or from a volunteer and member perspective like people like Eric and Greg and Tom and a bunch of tons of folks, actually.
Mm-hmm. Is there other events during the year that SEMA goes to?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. And it's all across all different sectors of the industry. So it's not just in the off-road space, but we've done, I think we're actually still planning to, I'm not going to be able to make it because of my schedule, but go to Smoky Mountain Jeep is it called a festival?
Invasion.
Invasion. That's it.
Invasion.
Yeah. So the Invasion, I really want to go to that one. It just never works out on my calendar. So we typically have a presence there. There's also the Carlisle Car Show, which is more in that collector car part of our space. So we typically have a presence there. We had a presence at Long Beach Grand Prix this year because it was the 50th anniversary
Right.
of the event and racing in Long Beach. So that was doing some stuff with our racing community. So we actually try to sort of touch base and partake in as many events as we can. Of course, we all have day jobs too, so running around the country is a little more difficult for us. But the fact is that, yeah, we try to have representation somewhere, and whether it's, either in the form of a sponsorship or just buying tickets and so forth. So, or we just, a lot of us are just personal enthusiasts too. So I did West Virginia Hill Fest. So Tom Zielinski's race last year in West Virginia, because I actually live in West Virginia. I work in DC, but live in West Virginia. So I raced my performance car for that event last year, and that was a ton of fun. And but that was on my own personal time. And if I can hit a car show locally, I will if I'm home. So yeah.
Well, it must be wonderful to be a vehicle enthusiast of multiple disciplines, if you will, and be able to be involved where you're making differences in the industry. So I think it's almost like a dream job.
It really is, and that's exactly how I described it when this position when I got called about the position when they started the search. It was sort of like one of those things that doesn't happen a lot in Washington, where your profession matches up with your passion, or you have that ability to sort of marry the two. And so that's been that was obviously the big driving force for me to join SEMA. And then really, I think, is what's fed into the work that we've done over the past, I guess, 2.5, almost 3 years that I've been with SEMA. So yeah, it's great. And I'm always somebody who loves to learn. I love to just hear people teach me about stuff or talk about their passions. And I bet
you do learn about a lot of stuff that you wouldn't normally know about, but it's just because of the access to the various people that you can ask questions of.
Yeah. And in the car industry, people are so willing to share information and knowledge. We're not very proprietary, It's sort of like, oh, what do you got under the hood? And people are like, throw it open and start talking about it. I'm not that technically capable. I'm just kind of like, I know what I have, but I don't, I don't go further beyond. I can tell you what brand of washer fluid I put in it, but I'm not a heavy technical person. But it also does. But when I do talk to folks that are really, really good at that kind of stuff, it really helps with how I'm able to talk with lawmakers and regulators and so forth on behalf of the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have to have work done on your vehicle, just having the right keywords so they don't overcharge you is always really good.
Exactly. Well, it was a funny story because I'd ordered skid plates for my Jeep. I hadn't installed them yet. I hadn't had time, and I know I wanted to get them. I didn't want to do it myself and I'm glad I actually didn't do it myself after the whole situation. But our head of garage in California is like, well, if you're driving the Jeep out here, just bring it here. After work, we'll throw it up on the lift and it'll be a couple hours. I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, just come on out. So I packed it up with all my stuff, and well, the 2-hour project turned into a 5-hour project.
Of course.
With 4 of us after work. And so it was awesome because, it was actually just a really nice way to hang out with some colleagues that I don't get to spend a lot of time with because they're in California. So, and usually when I'm in California, I'm running a million miles an hour trying to get a bunch of stuff done there before I have to come home. So it was a great time. And then I get to Moab, and I texted Eric, and he's like, did you install your lights? I'm like, no, I haven't had time to install my lights. So.
How are you doing? Are you still going to be here? We're going to meet up with you. No. Have you installed the damn lights?
Yeah. So I'm like, and he's like, bring them by. And I'm like, all right. So he and some other guys were installing my lights. I went to dinner, but at least I brought them dinner home. So.
Oh, I like that. You people install those little lights. I'm going to dinner.
Well, all due respect, it was Tom that told me to go to dinner because I was sitting there hanging out, and I'm again, all I can do is really hand you guys tools and whatever and annoy you. And so Tom's just like, let's go get dinner. We were meeting up with actually some other SEMA members. And so I was like, okay, I'll pop over there. And, but I was like, I will bring food back. So.
Oh, that was very nice. It was very nice. No, there's nothing wrong with that. So you mentioned skid plates. I went to EGS for the first time in 2023. And went on a trail up on Metal Masher, was with the Quadratech Tread Lightly group that was a trail run. After that, I said, I need to get me some skids for my Gladiator.
Yeah.
And I got I was so taken with the Motobuilt skid system. It was so flat and covered so much of the underneath of the Gladiator. I had to get those, and I got them. And I don't have anybody do things for me generally. And I had to scrub those things, paint them, do the whole thing, and install them. And oh my God, it's one of those damn things you buy for your Jeep that nobody sees, but makes you feel so good that it's there.
My driving confidence went up about 10.
Yes.
Yes. I knew it was going to be hard to break something. I do have to put diff covers on because that's the one thing I still haven't done. And of course, I hit my front diff like about 3 times. I'm like, of course I did. I put skid plates on, but of course I hit that because that's the one thing I didn't protect. I didn't protect that. So
it never ends. But I like that. It's a good thing. There's always something you can modify, add to, make it better.
Exactly.
And you probably already looked at the control arm skids as well, because that's some more low hanging fruit.
Oh, sure. I mean, I there's actually a few things. I'm now looking at Dana 60 axles and maybe a 40-inch tire, but I need to simmer myself down a little bit.
It's real easy to get excited, especially after you go to some place where they're showing all this stuff, and it's different. Nothing against SEMA, but they're static vehicles just sitting there. They look fun. It's great to look at them, but when you see somebody doing stuff with that build, it's just amazing.
Oh yeah, like that was the reason, because I wasn't. I'm on 35s right now with a 3.5 inch lift, and which is fine. And Greg was a great teacher in terms of helping me learn how to drive out west, and so I'm pretty careful. But then I'm like watching people like Eric and one of the other guys, Nick, and with their 40s, and I'm just like, man, that's so much nicer, and obviously much better, much more comfortable shock system and suspension system that they have.
Right.
But
it's just an amazing world. I mean, I've talked to some people that were doing this stuff back in the early 70s, mid 70s. They didn't even have off-road tires at that time that they were doing this stuff. And we are blessed with so much aftermarket. And this is one of the reasons why I don't want to say I get after people, but whenever they buy a Renegade or a Compass or something that I call a Gyno, Jeep in name only, it's fine if that's what you want to drive, but don't buy that thinking that the multi-billion-dollar aftermarket is going to be able to provide you parts for that vehicle. You want to get a Wrangler, a Gladiator, one of the ones that you can make use of this stuff. And it's just so much fun to modify the vehicle and take it off-road and see how much easier it is to do things.
Oh yeah, and even so, I keep mentioning Nick. He had an America's Most Wanted Gladiator. So if you see a bright orange Gladiator in any of the other guys' photos, that was Nick, and he had it also modified so the bed was a little shorter. And that build was just amazing. Like it was just like I was just sitting there watching, because like I wouldn't do a Gladiator in Moab just because that the bed would just annoy me, and it's like one more factor for me to worry about. But I've seen how people have really evolved with their Gladiator driving out there and have navigated. But what he has with that AMW Gladiator, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I asked Greg if he had, because I knew that Nick's JLU that Greg did work on was down because of engine problem, and I said, and I was just curious. I hadn't asked Greg in a while. I said, was Nick in his green JLU the one that was actually at SEMA last year? And he says, no, he brought a America's Most Wanted Gladiator with a bob bed, and I know how Greg feels about bobbed beds. I think it's great from the standpoint of a departure angle. It's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Like because Nick, Eric and I are usually together because they usually sandwich me. So in case, the one direction from my boss at work is don't kill Karen, or don't let Karen die. And, or
at least get video for SEMA. Yeah,
exactly. Get video, but please, if it happens, but don't let Karen die. And so anyways, so I spent a lot of time watching those two drive, and I really liked how the AMW, how it worked, and that Bob bed. I don't know. Greg has such opinions.
I don't know. I know it's fun. He's easy to pick on. So I don't know that I would watch Nick drive, because he was out burning trails up last year, making a huge dust cloud.
Yeah, in the 392. Yes. Yeah. I have another story, but I have to tell him the story first before I'll say it on a public channel about my reaction to his driving at one point during the week.
Oh, he has. They didn't say binary, but I remember when I was. You remember when they used to give you driving courses for school, driving courses to learn how to drive. So the instructor was teaching us how to get on the freeway, and the acceleration lane, and the women would have a hard time accelerating. I didn't have a hard time accelerating. And he told me that my gas pedal was either all the way on or all the way off. I call it binary now, with computers.
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good way to describe Nick's driving.
I got to accelerate. Sure, I can accelerate.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Well, I do want to give a 2-minute warning. Because I do have a meeting I have to hop on to at 3:00.
Oh, no problem. This is cool because it makes you sound like we have a big time guest, It's
I'm in adult clothes. Everyone's like, she doesn't drive a Jeep. She's like in nice clothes and jewelry. Like, what is she talking about?
You got more important things to do than be here. I think it's wonderful. It shows how good we are getting good guests. So what I like to do,
out with you guys.
I understand. Yeah, meetings are only interesting if you're the one running it, and even then it's tenuous. So one of the things I like to do towards the end of the interview is, how can people find, how the kids love the social media? How can they find you guys on social media?
You just look us up as SEMA Action Network. That's the way you can keep up with all of our legislative work and all of the call to actions and the updates of everything that's happening in Congress and across the country. So that's the best handle, is SEMA Action Network. And then, of course, if you just want to follow along with the regular SEMA Association stuff, you can find those handles just as SEMA Association. So,
and if you don't mind people following you, what was the how do they follow you?
Yeah, my account's open. It's a DC Jeep N Food. So Jeep N Food.
And that's Instagram or everywhere?
That's it. That's Instagram.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. Thank you very much for being here with us today, and we'll have to get you back because things aren't static; they change all the time, and you can give us updates.
Yeah, and we'll be able to get to do some more stuff on some of our off-road public land stuff, and we can talk a little bit more about that, and that's going to start to take shape in the coming months. So have lots to share on that front as well. Excellent.
Thank you so much for doing the work. I've got, keep like the EV mandates, which I don't have a problem with EVs, but we shouldn't be mandated to do it. So good luck on that, and keep going. And thank you for putting together the thing for the DC deal. But next time, Greg needs to be in that table sweating it out, talking too close to the mic. Is this thing on?
Is this thing on? Well, maybe do a mock one for him so it looks like
I don't care. Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll Photoshop him for you with the kilt and everything.
All right, Karen, thank you so much.
All right, thanks. Great to meet you.
All right.
Bye.
Broadcasting since 2010.
You're my friend. You're my new friend.